Hi, I'm Daniel from RTINGS.com. In this video, we'll look at the results from our ongoing burn-in test, which has been running now for 16 weeks. For more information about how this test was conducted, see the links in the description below. We'll look at the measurements and try to identify any trends in the data and what it means for your TVs. We've also bought 6 2017 OLED TVs and propose a new burn-in test to help us understand more about how content and brightness levels affect OLED burn-in and what it means for you. Firstly, looking at the images of the IPS LG UJ6300, we can see that after 16 weeks, there are no signs of uniformity changes or burn-in. Also, on the Samsung KU6300, over the same 16-week period, the uniformity remains consistent and no signs of our logo are visible. On the other hand, looking at the weekly images of the OLED B6, we can see that the static logos become imprinted and more visible in color slides as the weeks progress. Note though that these color slides really are the worst case scenario to show any burn-in, and that on normal content this is much less visible. OLED TVs have 4 subpixels which make up each pixel: white, red, green, and blue. On our test with our patterns, the red subpixels appear to degrade the fastest as they're visible on the flat red background around week 4, followed by green, then blue, and white has very little degradation. Composite color slides, such as magenta, yellow, and cyan, make it easy to see this relative color degradation. We can also see that the burnt-in edges of the logo aren't solid lines like our original pattern, but in some cases appear to be softened or to show double image artifacts. This is a result of the pixel shift option, which does appear to work to reduce the degradation rate of small areas, but some objects in our pattern are large enough that this small shift isn't enough to prevent them from permanently displaying the same color. Most notably, the stroke of the N appears duplicated on each side due to this pixel shift. Now, looking at the color gamut and peak brightness measurements for each TV, we can see that there are no significant changes outside of our measurement variance yet. At this point, it is too early to make any conclusions about the lifetime of these TVs in the absence of burn-in. However, we will continue running this test under the same conditions for at least another 8 months. Our current stance is that burn-in will occur under worst-case conditions, but most people who vary what they watch and don't display much content with bright static watermarks shouldn't have a problem. Unfortunately, we don't have a good idea of how problematic specific uses are, for example, watching live sports, news, or gaming. As a result, we've decided to start a new concurrent burn-in test. We've bought 6 2017 LG C7s and designed the test based on your feedback and suggestions over the past 4 months. We've identified some of the main comments and criticisms of our current burn-in test, so this is how we plan to improve upon them. The first is that the existing test has the TVs running for 20 hours straight each day. Now, LG has confirmed to us that the length of the on-off cycle does not matter, only the hours of cumulative usage. However, we do want to align our test parameters with typical usage, and so have planned for a 5 hours on, 1 hour off cycle. This is all automatically controlled with a microcontroller via infrared, which simulates the power button presses on a remote control for each TV. The second issue with our current test is that our test pattern may not perform the same as real content. This is a very valid criticism and is our biggest focus for improvement in this test. We'll be playing different source material on each TV, and rather than a generated pattern, it will be real content from live TV, video games, or sports. Now for the test setup. 5 of the C7s are for comparing the effect of source material, and these TVs are all set to a brightness of 200 nits on our checkerboard pattern, which corresponds to an OLED light setting of about 60. The remaining model is set to the maximum OLED light to see how the TV brightness affects the results. The first 2 TVs will be displaying a live cable feed of CNN, as it is a widely watched news channel which has frequent areas of static content but still represents real-world usage. The reason for 2 TVs with the same source is that the different brightness settings are to identify the relationship between the OLED light and burn-in. The content on the third TV is for someone who enjoys a sport, and will watch the same sport regardless of the channel. For example, watching an NFL game on NBC or CBS, but then changing to ESPN for a college game. It isn't feasible for us to follow a sport between channels for 20 hours a day, so we use a lot of pre-recorded content to avoid too much repeating. This includes multiple channels and a range of different teams. The next TV is showing live content from a general purpose channel. These live channels don't have a lot of static content and show a variety of content, such as TV shows, movies, sports, and news. The fifth TV represents someone who plays video games that do feature some bright static content. In this case, we're playing pre-recorded content from FIFA 18, which is many hours in length to provide some variation. The last TV represents a less risky video game. These typically have partially transparent heads-up displays or darker content. In this case, we're playing in-game footage from Call of Duty World War II, which has been collated into a very long compilation. Every 2 weeks, we'll take photos of each screen with the same 7 full-screen slides. Every 2 months, we will also measure the color gamut and brightness of each TV. The goal of this test is to allow you to assess your risk of burn-in based upon how you watch TV. We are still finalizing the source material, but we plan to start this test within the next 2 weeks. Let us know if you've got any comments on our test methodology or have ideas for how we could improve it. If you like what we're doing, then subscribe to the channel or become a contributor, and see you next time.